Imagine being at your lowest, struggling just to put food on the table, when suddenly, your child runs into the arms of a billionaire and calls him daddy. What would you do? Would you laugh it off as a child's mistake? Or would your world come crashing down as buried secrets threaten to surface? Welcome to Stories of Hope, where real-life tales of struggle, resilience, and unexpected twists come to life. Today's story is one you won't forget. Stay with me, because this one is filled with heartbreak, mystery, and a shocking truth that will leave you speechless. But before we dive in, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. The cafe smelled of burnt coffee and fresh bread. Olivia adjusted the strap of her worn-out purse and sighed, shifting little Liam on her hip. At just 3 years old, he was small for his age, but his bright eyes carried a warmth that kept her going. She wasn't supposed to bring him here. The manager had made that clear. This is a workplace, Olivia, not a daycare. But what choice did she have? The babysitter cancelled last minute, and if she missed another shift, she'd lose the job that barely kept them afloat. "Mummy, I'm hungry," Liam whispered, his little fingers curling around the fabric of her uniform. She swallowed hard. "I know, baby. Just a little longer, okay?" The cafe was unusually packed today. The private offices across the street had let out early, filling the space with men in sharp suits and women tapping away on sleek laptops. Olivia kept her head down, moving quickly between tables, hoping no one would notice the small child tucked behind the counter. But someone did. A deep voice cut through the noise. "Excuse me, miss?" Olivia turned, heart hammering. A man sat at a corner booth, his presence commanding without effort. His dark hair was neatly styled. His watch probably cost more than she made in a year, and his sharp blue eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her throat dry. "Yes, sir?" she asked, forcing politeness into her tone. He gestured toward Liam. "Is that your son?" Panic gripped her. Had she just lost her job? Yes, but I promise he's not disturbing anyone." The man raised a hand, cutting her off. "Relax, I was just asking." His gaze softened, lingering on the child before flicking back to Olivia. "What's his name?" She hesitated. Why was a man like him interested in her son? "Liam," she said finally. A strange silence stretched between them. The man stared at Liam, something unreadable flickering in his expression. Olivia couldn't place it. Recognition? Pain? Then, to her horror, Liam did something that made her blood freeze. His tiny face lit up with a beaming smile, and before Olivia could react, he dashed forward, straight into the man's arms. "Daddy!" The cafe fell silent. Olivia's breath hitched, the billionaire's face drained of color. His hands trembled slightly as he held the child, his eyes wide with something that looked a lot like shock. Olivia felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her feet. What had Liam just done? And more importantly, why did this man look like he knew exactly why? The cafe was still. People who had been mid-conversation, sipping coffee, or typing away on their laptops, were now frozen, eyes darting between Olivia, Liam, and the man who held her son, as if time itself had stopped. Olivia's legs felt weak. Her pulse roared in her ears. "Liam!" she breathed, stepping forward as if she could undo what had just happened. "Sweetheart, come here." But Liam didn't move. His little arms were wrapped around the billionaire's neck, his face pressed against the man's expensive suit. The man's chest rose and fell in slow, deep breaths. His hands trembled slightly before he carefully placed them on Liam's small back. And then, he spoke. "Hey there, buddy." His voice was low, almost cautious. Olivia felt like she couldn't breathe. Why wasn't this man confused? Why wasn't he pushing Liam away, laughing awkwardly, or looking to Olivia for an explanation? Instead, he looked like a man who had just come face to face with a ghost. I'm so sorry, Olivia stammered, rushing forward and gently prying Liam from his grasp. He must have mistaken you for someone else. But as she looked into the billionaire's eyes, a horrifying thought crawled into her mind. What if it wasn't a mistake? The man studied Liam for a long moment before shifting his gaze to Olivia. What's your last name? His voice was steady, but there was an edge to it. Olivia swallowed. That's none of your business. His jaw tightened. I think it is. Her heart pounded. Look, I don't know what's going on, but we don't need trouble. Please, just forget this happened. She turned to leave, but his next words made her stop cold. Olivia Carter. Her blood turned to ice. Slowly, she turned back to him, her entire body tense. How do you know my name? His expression darkened, and his grip on the table tightened. Because, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, I think I know exactly who you are. The room felt like it was closing in. Olivia clutched Liam tighter, panic clawing at her throat. Who are you? She demanded. The man exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. Ethan Graves. She flinched. The name slammed into her like a train. Ethan Graves. She knew that name. She had spent years trying to forget it. Liam squirmed in her arms. Mommy, I want to stay with Daddy. Her grip on him tightened. Liam, no, we have to go. But Ethan stood up. Wait, he said, his voice raw. Olivia, is he? No. She cut him off before he could finish. You're mistaken. Ethan's eyes flashed with something unreadable. Am I? She had to get out of here. Now pushing past him, she rushed toward the exit, Liam's little body pressed against her chest. The cafe doors slammed behind her, the cool air hitting her face like a slap. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because if Ethan Graves was who she thought he was, if he was the same man from her past, then she was in more trouble than she had ever imagined. The cold wind bit at Olivia's skin as she rushed down the sidewalk, gripping Liam so tightly he let out a soft whimper. Mommy, why are we running? His little voice trembled. She forced herself to slow down. She swallowed hard, glancing over her shoulder. The cafe was now far behind, but her heart wouldn't stop hammering. We just need to go home, okay, baby? Liam rested his head on her shoulder, and Olivia forced herself to breathe. Ethan Graves. The name echoed in her mind like a siren. It had been 4 years since she last saw him, since she had left that part of her life behind. And now, out of nowhere, he was here. She needed to think. She needed to figure out what to do next. But as she rounded the corner toward their tiny apartment, a sleek black car was already parked by the curb. Her stomach dropped. Ethan was standing outside the car, hands in his pockets, watching her with the same intense stare from the cafe. No. Olivia took a step back, clutching Liam protectively. What are you doing here? Ethan's voice was calm but firm. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. His eyes flickered to Liam. I think there is. Olivia's chest tightened. She had spent years preparing for this moment, telling herself it would never come. She had been careful, stayed out of sight, never reached out. And yet, somehow, Ethan had found them. Liam wiggled in her arms, looking between them. Mommy, why is Daddy here? Olivia shut her eyes. Stop saying that, Liam. But, go inside, she whispered, setting him down. I'll be right there. Liam hesitated before nodding and scurrying up the steps to their apartment door. Once he was inside, Olivia turned back to Ethan, fire in her eyes. You don't get to just show up like this. Ethan stepped closer, his expression unreadable. Then tell me the truth, Olivia. She folded her arms. The truth? She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. The truth is, I had no choice but to leave. The truth is, you don't get to act like you're the victim here. His jaw clenched. You think I'm playing the victim? Olivia, I've spent years wondering where you went. I had nothing, no closure, no answers. You had everything, she shot back. Your money, your perfect life, your family. His gaze darkened. Is he mine? The question hit like a bullet. Olivia swallowed, her throat tight. No. Liar. Her nails dug into her palms. You think you can just waltz in after all these years and claim him? She shook her head. You don't get to do this, Ethan. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Damn it, Olivia. Just tell me the truth. You want the truth, she whispered, voice shaking. The truth is, I was pregnant when I left, and I knew if I stayed, your family would have torn me apart. His eyes widened, pain flashing across his face. Olivia? She took a shaky breath. Your father offered me money to disappear, Ethan. He said I'd ruin your life if I stayed. Ethan's hands curled into fists. He did what? You heard me, she said, her voice breaking. And I knew he was right. I wasn't good enough for you. I was just some broke girl who fell for a man way out of her league. She wiped at her eyes. So I left. I raised Liam on my own, and I did just fine without you. Ethan was silent, his chest rising and falling in deep, controlled breaths. Then, after a long pause, he finally spoke. You think I would have let that happen? His voice was raw, almost broken. You think I would have chosen them over you? She turned away, blinking back tears. It doesn't matter anymore. The hell it doesn't, he snapped. That's my son in there, and you kept him from me. Olivia's throat tightened. I did what I had to do. Ethan took a step closer, his voice softer this time. Olivia, let me be part of his life. She hesitated, because deep down she knew this wasn't just about her anymore. But letting Ethan back in meant opening old wounds, wounds she wasn't sure would ever heal. And worse, it meant risking everything she had fought so hard to protect. The apartment felt colder than usual, even though the heater hummed softly in the background. Olivia sat at the edge of the couch, her hands gripping the worn fabric as she stared blankly at the door. Ethan was outside, and no matter how much she wanted to pretend this wasn't happening, it was. A soft voice broke the silence. Mommy, is Daddy mad at you? Olivia's chest tightened. She turned to see Liam standing in the hallway, rubbing his sleepy eyes. He's not your daddy, sweetheart, she whispered. Liam frowned. But he looks like me. Her heart dropped. She had spent years dreading this conversation, and now, with Ethan waiting outside, demanding answers, she didn't know what to say. She walked over and crouched down to Liam's level, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. Baby, sometimes people come into our lives unexpectedly, but that doesn't mean they're supposed to stay. Liam's lip trembled. He said he wants to see me again. Olivia shut her eyes. I know. A sudden knock at the door made them both jump. Olivia, please! Ethan's voice was muffled but firm. Just let me in. Liam looked up at her, hope shining in his innocent eyes, and in that moment, Olivia knew she had lost. She stood slowly, her fingers shaking as she reached for the door handle. When she pulled it open, Ethan was standing there, his usually composed face lined with exhaustion. We need to talk, he said. Olivia sighed. Liam, go to your room for a bit, okay? Liam hesitated, then nodded, disappearing into the small bedroom. Ethan stepped inside, scanning the tiny space. The apartment was nothing like what he was used to. Peeling paint, second-hand furniture, the faint smell of instant coffee lingering in the air. You should have told me, he said, his voice low. Olivia crossed her arms. And then what? You think your father would have let you be a part of this? He sent me away, Ethan. He made it clear I wasn't welcome in your world. Ethan's jaw clenched. That wasn't his choice to make. But he made it anyway. She let out a bitter laugh. And you? You moved on. You went back to your perfect life. Ethan exhaled sharply. I searched for you, Olivia. I hired people. I checked hospitals, old addresses. Hell, I even went to that bookstore where we first met, hoping you'd somehow show up. Her breath caught in her throat. I never stopped looking, he continued, his voice cracking slightly. But you disappeared. And now, after all these years, I find out I have a son? Olivia looked away, tears burning in her eyes. I don't want your money, Ethan, she whispered. I don't want your pity. Ethan stepped closer. I don't care about any of that. I just want my son. Her stomach twisted. He's not just yours. I raised him, alone. And you did an amazing job, Ethan said softly. But he deserves to know the truth. He deserves to know his father. Olivia turned away, hugging herself. What if he hates you? She whispered. What if he hates me for keeping him away? Ethan hesitated, then gently reached for her hand. Then we figure it out together. The words hit her harder than she expected. For years, she had been fighting this battle alone, carrying the weight of her decisions, shielding Liam from a world she thought would reject him. But now, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't alone. A small voice interrupted them. Mommy? They both turned. Liam stood in the doorway, clutching his stuffed bear. His big eyes flickered between them, filled with questions. Is he really my daddy? Olivia's breath caught. She looked at Ethan, then back at Liam, and in that moment, she knew the truth could no longer be hidden. A heavy silence settled in the small apartment. Olivia felt her heart pounding in her chest as she looked at her son, his wide, innocent eyes filled with questions he was too young to fully understand. Ethan took a cautious step forward, his expression soft but filled with something deeper, something Olivia hadn't seen in years. Liam, his voice was gentle, careful. Yes, I'm your dad. Liam stared up at him, his tiny fingers tightening around his stuffed bear. For a long moment, he didn't say a word. Then, his lip trembled. You left us? Olivia's throat tightened. Ethan immediately knelt to Liam's level, shaking his head. No, buddy, I didn't know. If I had... He paused, swallowing hard. If I had known about you, I would have been here. I would have never let you and your mom go through this alone. Liam's little hands curled into fists. But you weren't here. Ethan's face fell. I know, and I can't change the past. But if you let me, I'd like to be here now. The words hung in the air. Olivia watched, her chest aching, as Liam processed everything. Her sweet boy, too young to understand the weight of this moment, yet old enough to feel the sting of absence. She stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Baby, I kept this from you because I thought I was protecting you, but I was wrong. Her voice cracked. I should have told you sooner. Liam blinked up at her, his tiny face filled with raw emotion. Are you mad at him, Mommy? Olivia's gaze met Ethan's. There was no denying the pain, the years of heartache, but there was also something else, something she had tried so hard to bury. She took a deep breath. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. Liam turned back to Ethan, studying him as if searching for something. Then, hesitantly, he stepped forward. Ethan held his breath, and then, tiny arms wrapped around his neck. Ethan's eyes slammed shut as he hugged his son for the first time. His entire body trembled, and Olivia saw it, saw the weight of regret, love, and overwhelming emotion crash over him. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered against Liam's hair. I'm so sorry. Liam didn't say anything at first, but then, in the smallest voice, he whispered back, Don't go again. Ethan pulled back just enough to look into his son's face. "I won't," he promised. "Not ever again." Tears blurred Olivia's vision. For the first time in years, the fear, the loneliness, it all felt a little lighter. Ethan slowly turned to her. "Olivia, I know I can't make up for the past overnight, but I want to be here, for both of you." Her heart pounded. She had been alone for so long, had built walls to protect herself. But as she looked at Ethan, at Liam, she realized something. She wasn't just protecting herself anymore. She was protecting her son's chance at having the father he deserved. So she nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "We'll take it one step at a time," she whispered. A slow smile spread across Ethan's face. "That's all I could ever ask for." And in that moment, Olivia knew this wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. Olivia and Liam finally found the truth, and Ethan got a second chance to be the father his son needed. Do you think they'll build a happy future together? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Stories of Hope for more emotional and inspiring stories. See you in the next one.